Aloha! My name is Travis Berger and I'm a graduate student at the University of Hawaii's Institute for Astronomy. In this video, I will be discussing my most recent work on the Gaia-Kepler Stellar Properties Catalog, papers 1 and 2, that I completed with collaborators Dan Huber, Jen Van Saters, Eric Gaidos, Jamie Tyar, Lauren Weiss, and Adam Kraus. Because exoplanet transit surveys such as Kepler rely on the ratio of areas between the exoplanet and the stellar disk to determine planet radii, stellar properties are incredibly important in the pursuit of precise exoplanet characterization. Paper 1 focuses on the computation of precise stellar properties for the entire Kepler target sample comprising 186,301 stars, which come from the homogeneous isochrone placement of Gaia DR2 parallaxes, G and K band photometry with extinction corrections, and spectroscopic metallicities where available. Isochrone placement is powerful because it allows us to determine important physical parameters from stellar masses to radii to ages, the latter of which was not included in previous Kepler stellar properties catalogs. Here's a plot of stellar luminosity versus stellar mass, which shows how stars of different masses evolve. All of the least massive stars do not have enough time in the age of the universe to evolve, while the more massive stars do evolve, from exhausting their hydrogen in their cores and becoming subgiants to hydrogen shell burning up through the red giant branch until igniting helium in their cores and settling on the red clump. In red are the 0.1 gigayear and 20 gigayear isochrones at solar metallicity to guide the eye. We can also see other evolutionary signatures such as the Hertzsprung gap, secondary red clump, and the AGB bump. Whereas paper 1 focuses on stellar properties, paper 2 focuses on trends in exoplanet properties derived from paper 1's stellar radii, luminosities, masses, and ages. All in all, about 3,000 stars from paper 1 were found to host close to 4,000 transiting exoplanets. Figure 2 shows stellar radii versus the effective temperature for each of these host stars. Most of the host stars are main sequence stars, although there are a few stars on the red giant branch. The color of the points represent the absolute age uncertainties of each star, and those in gray do not have useful age information given their low masses and long main sequence lifetimes. The colors of stars in this diagram follow our expectations, namely that 1. The most massive stars and subgiant stars have the most precise ages because they move the quickest and evolve the quickest in this diagram, and number 2, as we follow the main sequence stars to cooler stars, the age uncertainties grow. Previous studies have shown that the planet radius gap scales with stellar mass for smaller samples of stars and planets, so we plot planet radius versus stellar mass for the full Kepler sample in figure 5. The individual points are each planet radius stellar mass pair, and darker shadings represent the higher point densities across the diagram, while the best fit line and the uncertainty region are plotted as the red line and blue shaded region respectively. The black lines represent the range of slopes predicted by 1. The theory of core-powered mass loss, which predicts that planet radii are strongly affected by the bolometric incident flux on a planet, and 2. A planet mass dependence on stellar mass, which is required by the theory of photoevaporation to explain the planet radius gap's dependence on stellar mass. We also performed Monte Carlo simulations with this data and find that it would take over 20,000 planets with 1% precisions on planet radius and stellar mass to differentiate between photoevaporation's required planet stellar mass dependence and core-powered mass loss, a feat that is not currently possible. Another area of parameter space that could be used to differentiate between core-powered mass loss and photoevaporation is stellar age. Core-powered mass loss is expected to occur on timescales of a gigayear or more, whereas photoevaporation is expected to act in the first 100 million years. Therefore, we carefully chose 2 samples of host stars similar in stellar mass, metallicity, and radius that straddle an age of 1 gigayear and designate stars that are younger than 1 gigayear as young and older than 1 gigayear as old. We plot our resulting distributions in this figure, where we can see that the young planet distribution has a larger percentage of sub-Neptunes compared to the old planet distribution. The ratio of super-Earths to sub-Neptunes in the old distribution is about 4 sigma greater than the ratio in the young distribution, which is consistent with core-powered mass loss and suggests that sub-Neptunes are becoming super-Earths on gigayear timescales. In addition, we find that if we split up the old and young distributions as a function of incident flux, the difference in the ratios of the old and young super-Earths and sub-Neptunes is even larger at higher incident fluxes, which is also consistent with core-powered mass loss, while at low incident fluxes, the size of the sub-Neptunes appears to decrease over time. The latter result may suggest that sub-Neptunes possess hydrogen-helium envelopes as opposed to higher mean molecular weight atmospheres, given the magnitude of their contraction. We therefore conclude that this is the first evidence for an age dependence of the planet radius gap. Together, papers 1 and 2 demonstrate the utility of precise homogeneous stellar properties for constraining exoplanet demographics and indicate that similar future investigations will prove critical in the further advancement of our knowledge of planetary systems. If you're interested in the details of what I just discussed, planets within the planet radius gap, planets within the hot sub-Neptunian desert, cool inflated Jupiters, habitable zone planets, or comparisons between single and multi-planet systems, please check out papers 1 and 2 at the link below. Mahalo.